We believe the purpose of owning a business is funding your perfect life. Welcome to the next generation of growth and opportunity in the inspection industry. This is the Empire State of Mind. Empire State of Mind. Helping build companies with faster growth, higher profits, and more time freedom. Finally, a podcast for the home inspection industry and beyond. This is the Empire State of Mind. And this is your host, Matt Williams.
Welcome to the show. I got to tell you, I love doing these episodes every single time. I know I'm always super excited about every guest that's here. But today we have somebody that I think is a very special guest. Today we have somebody who is a very integral part of IEB, and they've taken time out of their day to come chat with us. And I'm so excited about this. Rob and Michelle Hopkin, how are you guys doing today?
We are terrific, Matt. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, super excited to be here.
Yeah, so you guys are up in the Northeast part of the country, and I'm in the Southwest part of the country, and I'm just going to rub it in that it's been nothing but blue skies and sunshine, and it is like, I mean, we're filming this thing in kind of springish, so it is. What's the weather like up there right now?
Oh, our front door is wide open, and it's about 65 degrees. Beautiful,
okay,
beautiful
right.
day, sunny.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah,
all right, you guys are warming up there too.
It's
That's
a good
fantastic.
time of year here.
Yeah, I love the springtime. It always is I don't know. I couldn't handle the winters up there. I don't think I'm too used to the desert down here in the sunshine. Although I visited your place one time, and all the greenery, everything's so lush and green, and I got to say the sand here does get old fast. So
right,
nothing but cactus. Yeah. So guys, I'm so glad you took the time to be on here. Now, you guys have been in the inspection industry for quite some time. And I just was catching up with you a little while ago about this. And Rob, you got into this thing first. And I'm just curious, when did you start doing inspections?
I started doing inspections in 1986.
Wow. Okay.
Michelle was in diapers then, I think.
high school. I was in high school, not diapers.
High school. Okay. I take it you all weren't married at that point in time.
We were not.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that may have been illegal. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Rob, how'd you get into this?
Well, I used to have a remodeling company years ago when I got out of college. And after a while, we had about 100 people working for us. And I believe every single one of them made more money per hour than I did. And so I, like all people that can't really do it, I went to a seminar on how to run my business better. The guy giving the seminar said, "Rob, it seems like you're a little burned out. Why don't you come work for me?" So I went home, tossed my keys to my partner, and I said, "I am out of here." And I went around the country giving the seminar on how to run a remodeling business for him, which was ironic because I never did it successfully in my own mind.
But if you can't do it, then you teach it, right? Is that how that works? Yeah. That's really funny. Like here you are struggling, or not struggling. I'm like, on the outside looking in, I would say, if you have 100 employees, almost everybody on the outside in would go, "Wow, you must be crushing it."
Oh, yeah. We were doing a couple of $1 million a year, and it looked pretty good from the outside, but I knew nothing about running a business. And that's the thing. I knew all about hammering nails and building a staircase, but I didn't know how to run a business. And it wasn't until later in life when I started having employees that in the home inspection industry that I actually learned how to run that business.
Wow, isn't that a common story though? Like people are really good business doers, but not business owners.
Well, yeah. And the thing about having all those employees initially and tossing my keys to my partner, I was my only employee after that. And I loved that. I did that for about, 15 years, 15 plus years. I was the only inspector. I only had to answer to me. I had a secretary that did the scheduling, and that was that. And I loved it. I was only responsible for myself, unlike the 100 employees I'd had previously.
That's a lot. Like 100 employees is a lot.
Yeah.
And if you don't have your stuff structured well, I can see how that would really fry you out.
It was a mess.
Yeah. Well, you got out, and that's good. So you went in to start, I'm going to do this inspection thing. and you did it just by yourself for 15 years. Did you enjoy it at that point in time?
Oh, I loved inspecting houses. I loved it for years and years. And the idea when you're doing inspections, it's a happy atmosphere. You're helping people. They're buying a house. Everybody's excited. You're all on the same side of the table. You're consulting with them. It's a win-win all the way around. Very happy vibes for the most part. And so
you're the expert in the room, right?
Yeah,
like as an inspector,
it was
people
fun.
look up to you and they respect your opinion.
Everybody listened. Everybody trusted you. We were the trusted advisor. And I think that's what people really like about the home inspection business. It's an upbeat, positive atmosphere for the most part.
Yeah, it really is. Whereas if you're a contractor, people assume you're ripping them off, right?
Exactly. There's always, no matter how well things go, there's always that question in people's minds. Did he rip me off?
I used to own a used car lot, and it's completely the opposite there. Like everybody just assumes that you're ripping people off when they have a car lot. That's funny. So 15 plus years solo, you had someone answering your phone, booking your schedule. This is long enough ago that technology was probably pretty much non-existent.
Oh yeah, it was. We used to do our reports on 3-part NCR paper. The report was about 12 pages long. I would write till my fingers absolutely ached, and I couldn't write another thing. And you really had about 1 to 2 sentences on any given subject.
And before you
couldn't write any more than that.
Before NCR, didn't you have like a little book?
Well, that was a 3-part NCR.
Okay.
You tore off copies for it and stuff.
So you had like a white and a pink and a yellow copy kind of thing?
Okay. And I believe I was one of the first to transition over to computer-generated reports. And, we all thought, oh, this is the answer. We're going to be able to do things twice as fast, twice as effective. We can cover our butts a little bit better. And you know what happened? It took longer.
Oh, I bet it did.
Now, the reports were better, and we covered our butts like crazy, but the whole industry turned into a cover your butt kind of mentality. And I don't think that helped. And I think there's a lot less of that nowadays. Many more people are willing to step out and make the call nowadays than they were, I would say, even 10 years ago.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I think we have that kind of going. I mean, I haven't been in the industry that long, so I couldn't tell you about 10 years ago. But yeah, I would say that it's true. There are some inspectors who are very much CYA all the time, and then there's some that are stepping out, giving a little more opinion, helping people process and understand. Because if you just do hard facts and no direction at all, like people still have questions when you're done. Otherwise, right? Like,
yeah,
it's Mike, they need some like opinion, some not coaching, but some guidance of like, how severe is this? How much does it cost to fix this? Like,
and in those days, there were a lot of phone calls, a lot of follow-up phone calls, because you couldn't put enough in writing for people to really understand what was going on. So there were often
no pictures, right?
Right, no pictures. There were often 2 or 3 phone calls with every inspection, and you're doing 2 or 3 inspections in a day, and then that's generating 6, 8, 9 phone calls in a day. It was a lot of really long days.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be really long days. So you've been growing, obviously. After 15 plus years, you made a decision at some point in there to go, I'm happy being a one-man person, because there's a lot of inspectors that love that. They're like, I'm just a one-man operation. I've got somebody answering my phone, or maybe not. Maybe they're still answering their own phone, or maybe they've gotten busy enough to have maybe somebody like in the position you were in there with one person answering the phone. And so things are clicking. They're going well. Why would you, because I'll be honest, that's a sweet spot in money making really, is if you're a single man guy with a person answering your phones, your profitability percentage-wise is the highest it's probably ever going to be. What would motivate you to go from a fully booked single-man operator into branching out and starting to hire employees? What was that decision-making process like, and what were the pros and cons of that?
Well, Matt, that's a great question, because it's really a very important question that people have to ask themselves. And for me, the reason was my family. I realized after we had multiple kids, and for a while we had 7 children living in our house. So I realized if something were to happen to me, if I fell off a roof or got hit by a car or had a heart attack, we were going to be out of the house in about 2 months, probably, because there wouldn't have been any other income coming in. And
Wow.
I felt like that is way too much risk to put on my family. So
Wow.
with
That's a really good point.
yeah, with that in mind, I knew I had to grow, and I had to step out of my comfort zone of just me being the answer to everything and rely on other people. And that's a difficult thing for a lot of inspectors.
Yeah, I bet that is. So along the way, you and Michelle met and got married. Michelle, were you part of Rob's world when he made that decision?
That's kind of funny that you say that, Matt. So I was raising 7 kids and Rob was doing his inspection thing, and our jobs didn't really cross very much. He did his inspection thing, I did the kid thing. And, the market was kind of changing. Rob's calendar was always booked. And then, the foreclosures start happening in like 2007, and he needed to get a little more business. So back in the day, he tries this really edgy thing called pay-per-click. And with this pay-per-click campaign, and now it's very commonplace, but back then that was like really out of the box thinking in like 2007. And so he does this campaign and they record the phone calls. And the lady that was answering his phones, he listened to the calls. And out of the 60 calls that she took, she was very adversarial. If you wanted to schedule, she was your friend. If you wanted to ask a question, she got very annoyed with you. And she booked 1 inspection out of 60. And
oh, no.
Yeah. So that morning, Rob hands me the cell phone. He went and got it from her, fired her, and he handed me the cell phone. And he said, "Here it is, Michelle. You're up." And I'm like, "What do you mean I'm up?" Like, I actually
no conversation ahead of time.
Nothing. He was leaving for home inspections, and he says to me, I was like, "I don't even know the phone number to the business. I didn't even know the number." And he was like, "It's on the notepad in there."
Hey, it's not an outbound call job.
Yeah, you don't need to know that. They call you.
So I was like petrified. Like I literally, and he was like, "Michelle, you care whether we feed our family or not. So I know that you're going to do a better job than she did. You may not know anything, but you're going to do fine." And
yeah,
I was surprised that I actually knew more than I thought I did, because I had been living it for quite a few years. By that point in time, I'd been living the inspection industry for 5 years. And so, you pick up things whether you realize it or not. And so that's, Rob likes to say that I got drug into the business kicking and screaming. And then maybe 4 or 5 years down the road, somehow he started working for me.
Yeah. And she did a great job, by the way. Within a few weeks, she was booking inspections flawlessly and multiple inspections a day. And we had a deal back then. If she booked 6 inspections in a day, I took her out for a lobster dinner because she loved lobster. And that worked for a year or so, and then
I got tired of lobster.
Yeah, after a while,
because you're booking so many. That's awesome. I love that.
I don't care what it is. No one wants to eat that 3 or 4 times a week.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, okay.
And we kept up in the numbers, because it was getting easier and easier. But even at 10, it was just I was consistently being able to book that many jobs, and that's
the thing about that is, and Michelle answering the phones because she cares is more important than anything else. I hear people all the time, they have answering service, or they have somebody that doesn't really care, or a neighbor or somebody answering their phones, or they hire a service. And you know what? If those people are order takers, they don't care if they book the inspection or not. They're happy to book it, but they don't really care. Michelle cared, and that comes across on the phone. If you really care about people, and you care about those people, and you care about the transaction and how it's going to go, you're going to book it more often than not. And I tell people all the time in our coaching program, I would rather you do a screwed up bad inspection and have somebody answer your phone and book it very well than have somebody answer the phone and screw up the booking to the point where you don't even get an opportunity to do a bad inspection. So let's get the inspection first. We'll worry about doing a good job second. And you know what? Even if you did a bad inspection, half the people probably wouldn't know anyway. But let's do a good inspection anyway.
But you do have to get it scheduled.
But you have to get it scheduled. It's so critical. And so many, to me, that is the most important thing that we have to do in our business, aside from doing a quality inspection. We have to answer the phone in a comprehensive, caring, respectful way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important, because your first point of contact is that answer, that phone call. Well, your first point of contact, your website, probably, but people go to your website and look at your Google reviews or Yelp reviews or whatever review site they want to go to. And then by the time they make a phone call, they've already had at least one interaction with your company, with the website. And then that second interaction is super important. By the time the inspector shows up, they've had several interactions. They've had emails, confirmation emails, or text messages maybe that are saying, so then by the time the inspector shows up, there's maybe 2, 3, 4 points of contact. So then that inspection's already set up to be a good transaction, a good experience. And then your inspector gets out there and makes it a great experience, hopefully. But yeah, you're right. If it's a bad experience on the front end, then you're not going to book the inspection. You're not even going to get the chance to book an inspection, because whatever, something stinks along the way.
I know a lot of guys like to book the inspection themselves in between inspections, or they might even be standing on the roof and take a call from time to time. But it's hard to have your concentration where it needs to be when you're doing that. And, as a multi-inspector firm, one of the things that we do is when we go out to market is we say, you explain it, Michelle. You do it all the time. You're better at that than I am.
One of our unique selling points is that we have full-time office staff, to schedule. Our inspectors do not have to take their attention away from you and your clients to book the next job. They are going to focus on you at that time of the inspection. So.
I think that's really good.
Yeah. And you know what? That realtor may not even think about that at that time. But the very next time they do an inspection and that inspector standing on the roof talking to somebody else on the phone, they're like, hey, that's what they told me they were going to do. I'm throwing these other guys next time. So
that is funny.
We gain a lot of business that way.
I bet you do. I mean, if you're because I'd started out that way, just me inspecting and answering the phone and doing everything. But you're right. You got to stop what you're doing and then answer the phone. And so something's getting either 2 things are going to get part of your attention. And so then both things suffer, or one thing gets your full attention. The other thing completely gets put on the back burner. And then, you get back and you hang up the phone, and then you got to go write down everything, or you have to go get out to the truck and get your calendar, or however you're doing, tracking that, writing your stuff down. And then you go back where you picked up, and you've lost your kind of your groove and momentum on the inspection. And it kind of messes everything up. So getting somebody to answer the phone, I noticed that the quality of my work personally went up when I had someone answering the phone, and I could just really stay mentally engaged into the what I was currently engaged in. I think that's absolutely true. And then having that full-time office staff, we have that too, but it's that definitely helps. I think it helps too, because your inspectors now are really focusing on what they're really good at.
Right.
Yeah. So all of your inspection quality goes up because they're only focusing on the lane that actually they're specifically hired to do. And their sweet spot is all they have to do. They don't have to stretch outside of their sweet spot to try to do the phone stuff. And same thing, you can hire people that are really good at answering the phones. And they can focus just on their sweet spot of dealing with people. And man, that's such a great way to put it too. I love that. I like how you guys use that as one of your.
And every time somebody got a hold of me, they would ask for a discount, and I would give them a discount. I couldn't help it. But when my staff answers the phone, they don't give the discount.
Right.
So I actually made more when I paid somebody else to answer the phone.
That is hilarious. That is so interesting. I'd have to go back and track that and see, because I felt like I gave discounts more freely than the staff. That is funny. I love that. That's really good. So all right. So we're 15 years in. You're deciding for my family. You got a wife at home, 7 kids at home. You're feeding them, and you're thinking, man, I am one accident away from my family being unstable. And that was your motivating decision to add inspectors. Around that same time, the controversial pay for click advertising is coming out, and you're taking a risk on that. Let's keep moving forward. So from that point moving forward, that was 2007-ish, give or take?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. In fact, at that time, I had a friend fall off a roof that was an inspector, and I'd had another friend have a heart attack in an attic where the paramedics actually had to go up into the attic and pull him down. And so that really got me thinking about, these guys are the same age as me. What would that look like?
Wow. So, but you're trying to grow.
Well, we weren't quite trying to grow in 2007. 2007, we started pay-per-click because, the downturn in the market.
Yes, that's what I was leading to. So, downturn in the market. How? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you used pay-per-click just to. Okay.
Yeah, to fill the calendar was why we started pay-per-click. And we were just at that point now trying to make ends meet because, Rob was doing at about, maybe 225,000 in business, and it kept creeping down. And then, by 2008, we were doing like 150,000.
Not even that, maybe 125. And I'm going, whoa, I can't make the mortgage payment like this. This is, we realized we were a couple of months from being broke. And you know what? As in retrospect, that was the best thing that ever happened to us. I know it sounds weird, right? A downturn in the economy, you're going broke, being the best thing. But I was rolling, and when things were good, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so my boat was lifted, and I was doing great. I was making lots of money. But when the tide went out, the business went down, and I didn't know how to market. I knew how to do inspections. And so at that point, we went and found a business coach. And that business coach helped us immensely, and that's what led us. And we still get coached to this day, and we are coaches for others to this day. In this day, but had we not had that downturn, I don't think I would have turned to coaching because I would have felt like, I'm doing okay on my own. Wow. But I'll tell you what that did do for us. In 2008, we went from $125,000 in revenue and being $20,000 in debt and in credit cards and $20,000 in debt on a line of credit and wondering how we're going to make the next mortgage payment to 3 months later paying off all of our bills. And, and 1 year later winning a national award for sales and marketing.
Wow.
So this is all new stuff that we didn't know before, but you know what? We were darn good at it once we knew it.
Wow. That's incredible. That's a huge turnaround right in the middle of the housing crisis of the 2007, 8, 9, that little thing. So you may have had a massive turnaround and an explosive growth in a downturn market.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And it was during that time you started hiring people?
Yeah.
Yes. What we realized is first we dialed up the marketing. And once you dial up the marketing, you better have the inspectors to back that up.
Yeah. And otherwise your calendar's full, right? And you're paying for that advertising and you can't fill it, right?
So we started hiring inspectors.
And we were bad at it.
Oh, we were so bad at it.
Because we were desperate. So,
if you wanted to work for us, I'm giving you the hard sell. You want to be a home inspector? Come work for me. I got this. I got that. I'm going to be the best. And you know what?
Wow.
We hired our first inspector 19 times.
We really needed RSTMM.
Right?
Yeah.
We were bad. We were really bad at hiring and training people. And it would take us a year to train them.
So can you imagine you train a guy for 6 months to a year, you've got all this time and money invested in them, and you're realizing about 9-10 months into it, this guy's probably not going to work out. He doesn't seem to be grasping all the concepts, but I've invested so much time, I've got to try,
Oh my gosh.
And inevitably they wouldn't work out. And some, what I found out is if you hire an old guy that's been a contractor for years, they can't work a computer and they can't write a coherent sentence.
Or they have no emotional intelligence and they scare the hell out of your clients.
If you hire a young guy, they don't know anything about construction and you've got to train them up on that and everything in between. And so it was quite the learning curve. We started reading books on building your business and running a business at a high level. And I'll bet you we read every business book we could get our hands on. You can see many of us behind us on the screen.
I see piles
Here,
of books behind
if
you.
you're viewing this live, there's like 200 books behind us, all business books on how to run a successful business.
So, but you had a bunch of employees before. You swore you'd never have them. You're going to do this solo. You go for 15 years by yourself. You have an epiphany one day and decide, you know what, too much risk for my family. I'm going to hire some people. How do you, and then you start struggling, you're hiring the first employee 19 times. And then now let's talk about where you're at right now so that to give some context. Now you have what, 15, how many inspectors you guys have?
18.
20?
Yeah,
18.
We're downsizing.
No, upgraded.
We've upgraded from 20 to 18.
Upgraded from 20 to 18. I like that. Yeah, and so you upgraded from 20 to 18. So now you've got 18. But how is it now that like you have a team of people that are working? And I know you well enough to know that you guys are good at this, like the team building side and getting your team dialed in. What changed? Like what helped change that?
Well, one of the things I'd like to share is how we realized we finally did hire an inspector that stuck. It was actually my nephew, and he was a really good inspector. But I couldn't get anybody to use him because it had been Rob now for 18 years at this point in time.
By the way, I trained this guy for a year.
And,
so he was good.
He was really good.
He's doing exactly the way that you do it.
Yeah, exactly. But I couldn't get anybody to use him because he wasn't Rob. And one day I finally talked one of Rob's like dedicated agents. He's used Rob for like 10 years. I was like, just let Jeff start the inspection. Once Rob finishes this other inspection, he'll come by, make sure everything's going well, and finish the inspection up with Jeff. And so I finally get someone to try him. And when Rob gets there, the guy comes running out of the house and Rob's like, oh my gosh, like this is.
Yeah, he's running down the street, waving his arms frantically. And I'm going, oh no, this isn't going well. And he gets right up to me and he's like so excited. He goes, Rob, it's incredible. It's like a mini Rob in there. Jeff's doing the same thing in the same order. He's telling the same stupid jokes you tell. You can go.
And
that's awesome. That is awesome.
And so that
a light bulb went off in my head.
And that's when we started, as we started coaching people, we were like, you have to have scripts, you have to have an opening speech. You have to have a closing speech. You have to have a speech in front of the electrical panel and in front of the furnace, because it brings a level of comfort to the agents that they're not scared of what you're going to say because you're saying the same thing that he says. And eventually, the inspectors take their own twist to it. But in the beginning, everybody says the same thing. And, it's
I literally wrote every script down that I say because they would be the same. I would go on autopilot. I would step outside and turn on the script and it would just go. And I didn't even know what I was saying. My mind was free to look at other things. I was just saying what I normally say. And once the guys could do that and they said the exact same thing and they did things in the exact same order, that is the secret sauce. For anybody that's listening to this podcast and thinking about maybe having an inspector work for them or 2 or 3 or 4, the key element is this: do the same thing in the same order and say the same things. It doesn't, even if you know more about roofing, even if one guy's a roofer and another guy's an electrician, they have to dumb down the parts that they know well to make it the same experience for everyone across all facets of the inspection.
Yeah.
And I'll add one more thing in there that we also learned as we were building our team, that if we hired guys that fit our culture, and for us, it was, we're very focused on having a servant's heart and just taking care of people. And if we hired people that aligned with that, we could teach them the home inspection process, but I couldn't teach you to care about people. If you already came to me and had all the house knowledge, I couldn't teach you to care about people if that wasn't already in your nature. And that was another thing that made us successful in keeping our inspectors long-term, because we have a lot of inspectors that have been with us 8-10 years.
You can teach home inspection stuff. You can't teach personality.
Right. No, you really can't.
And,
We hire, I hire for the same reasons.
We hire young
Yeah.
inspectors. Most of our inspectors early on were in their low to mid 20s. Whereas when I was just going through my 19 guys, cycling through those, they were mostly in their 50s and 60s. They were excellent technicians. Some of them had even been very good home inspectors for other people, but they didn't have the right bedside manner. They had a bad attitude toward realtors. They didn't want to do things the way I wanted them to be done. And so it was a constant battle.
Yeah, absolutely. So that culture piece, right? That's so important. In fact, we were just in that RSTMM class talking about the cultural fit for hiring people. And RSTMM, if you're not familiar, is something within IEB. It's recruit, select, train, motivate, and manage, I believe. Or is it manage, then motivate?
Manage, then motivate. Yeah.
Manage, then motivate. Right. And it's just the process in which we use within IEB. We coach it and teach it and try to live it, of how do you recruit the right talent, select the right people, train them. That first three right there is so critical. And finding the people that are culturally fit your organization, that do it the way you want to do it. That bedside manner is important. And how do you find the right people? That's something I hear constantly. Well, hiring's a pain in the butt. Oh, having all these employees is just annoying. I don't like it. It takes too much time. I just might as well do it by myself rather than trying to teach somebody else. And because you probably don't have a system to actually do it. Well, if you have a good process, right? Like the RSTMM process, if you use a process to recruit, select, train, manage, and motivate, all of a sudden it becomes a lot easier to be able to multiply. And
really it's so important to get that part right, because what is the cost of a bad hire? We ask that in several of our seminars and meetings. We'll go over that with folks, and people throw out numbers like, well, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000. No, the real cost for a bad hire is generally in the millions. And right. I know that's people's minds are blown right now. They're going, what are you talking about? How could that be? But really, if you hired a great hire and they worked out, and you could move on to hire the next person and the next person and the next person, and all of those people worked out instead of having to start over, how much more revenue would you be bringing in? How much bigger could you have gotten? How many more marketing reps could you have hired, or inspectors could you have hired if you got that right the first time?
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, because if you have a bad hire, it takes you longer to train them, to get them out in the field. So you spend 8 months or 10 months or even 12 months to get somebody trained up and out into the field. Whereas if you had the good hire on the front side, it might have only taken you 4 months.
Yeah.
So then you would have had 3 inspectors out there in the time it took you to get 1 inspector out there. And the 1 inspector ended up firing anyways, because you realize he's just not a good fit, And then meanwhile, that mediocre inspector isn't representing you or your brand the right way. So now you have a loss of revenue from the reputation that person is now created for you. So now you go back and undo that reputation. So, you start really looking into not just how much money you spent paying that person, but how much time you spent, and then the trickle down effect of that. Like, you're right, it adds up really quickly. Most people, when we go through that exercise, I've done that a few times within IEB and different coaching classes, and it's hundreds of thousands, if not into the millions, every single time. When you start really adding it up.
The pay that you pay them is a drop in the bucket. That's a small amount generally compared to the real cost. And, we talk to inspectors all the time, trying to build their business, and even inspectors that are not interested in building their business, but they've thought about maybe hiring another inspector. They've been on their own. Maybe they've heard me speak at an event from time to time, and they say, well, what would it be like if I hired a guy? And in their mind, they're thinking problems. If I hire a guy, it means problems. And it's just me now, and I have a certain amount of problems I have to deal with already. If I hire another guy, there'll be twice as many problems. If I hire 2 people, it'll be 4 times as many problems. And that's absolutely true. If you don't get it right, it does work like that.
If you don't get it right, that's why you got to have a good process, right?
Yeah, if you get it right, it's easier. I work about 20 hours a week right now, and we have 18 inspectors and 50 employees.
Yeah, that's amazing. Right. Yeah. Cause you've got a big organization going and now it's running well. And I bet your employees are happier in this company than your last one as well.
Yeah. Than the construction business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Construction back in the day. Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Because you're doing a better job as a leader. And so, that's incredible.
Yeah, it is a very key thing. And that's one of the things we learn in RSTMM is not only how to recruit and select a good candidate, but how to manage those people and motivate those people and train them to the best of our abilities. And there's a lot to it. And it's not something that most home inspectors know already. It's stuff that you have to learn outside and bring it to your business. There are no home inspection books that cover this.
And I think one of the things that we learned along the way was in the beginning, you would assign somebody a task and then you moved on because we were so busy like trying to grow and implement. And then, 3 months later, I would go back and ask about it. And they're like, I haven't been doing that.
That's not a thing.
That's not a thing. And, I didn't have any schedules of accountability in place because I thought that all you had to do was tell somebody something and then they owned it and they took it over and it was their baby.
That is not the way the world works.
And, so it was on us to learn to be better leaders. And we definitely learned that in Recruit Select also.
And I feel bad for the people that worked for us early on that when we weren't good leaders, because we kind of they were floating. Yeah. They were not properly trained. They were not as good as they could have been. Yeah. It took a while to get it down, and now we have our
processes.
Our process to train a home inspector has gone from a year to about 12 weeks.
That's fantastic. That's a good
and the
timeline.
guys coming out in 12 weeks are better than the guys that used to follow me around for a year.
Wow. Yeah, the learning by osmosis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just shut up, get in the truck, watch what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our process. Yeah.
Yeah, go put the new batteries in my flashlight.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, set up that ladder over there for me. Yeah. You end up with a lot of helpers, but nobody who's like a leader taking charge and doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, I had that. You were explaining how you had to get, you're the only guy that was doing it. So getting people to convert to maybe another person doing it, that's a challenge.
Right.
It's a really big challenge.
And a lot of people are afraid of that, and they shouldn't be.
They are. No, they shouldn't be. Yeah. If you train them well and do a good job with it. I remember making that switch as well. It was, that switch was tough, but we were able to get through it. A couple of things like that we did was, we would just let them know, like, I'd have we'd be together, like it'd be me and another guy. And then when it was time for that person to get out of the nest and fly, they would show up first and they would say, hey, Matt's running a little behind. He'll be here any minute now, but I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And he should be catching up soon. And of course I'm sitting around the corner eating a hamburger, on purpose. I'm purposely running late. And so let him get in there about 35, 45, maybe even an hour long. And then I would show up and be like, oh, hey guys, how you doing? And then I'd kind of help him finish it and then let him do the recap. And then eventually I would show up and I'd shake everybody's hand and get to know everybody. And then I'd be like, I got to go check on another guy, make sure his inspections, you're in great hands. He's doing really well. And then everybody was like, well, Matt will be here in a few minutes. And then after a while, there was no even mention of my name. And people just show up because they understood, well, Danny's great. Danny's a great inspector. Robbie's a great, Rudy, all these guys are great inspectors. They know that they don't need me to be there anymore. But at first it was a lot of me like running around a lot of miles on the truck to go to all these different inspections and show up late and just say hi and then leave. And then after a while, it's like, I didn't have to show up anymore. But yeah, that like handoff time is really hard to do.
And you know what? A new guy is not going to be as good as you are. No. You just have to get over that. If they're 70% of what you are as an inspector, that's pretty good. They'll pick up the last probably 20, 30% in time. But if you're waiting until they're as good as you are, you're never going to let them loose. And you can't afford to do that. As a business owner, can't afford to carry somebody that long.
Well, and they'll never hit that they'll never make that extra step, that 20, 30% if you're standing there. Mm-hmm. Like that inspector won't finish because they can always just look to you for the answer. Whereas if you're not standing there, then they have to figure it out. And they have to, and the training wheels have to go away for them to like actually ride the bike. And if you're standing there as training wheels the whole time, they'll never actually get there. Like you'll always be stuck at 80%. And yeah, you're right. You got to set them free and just deal with the mess,
Yeah. In IEB, we have a saying, jump off the cliff and build the airplane on the way down.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, building the plane in the air. That's good. I like that. That's pretty funny. So in 2008, 8, you started growing. You started doing clicks. That was in the middle of a downturn market that you were actually growing in the midst of. We are currently in a downturn market.
Very similar, yes.
Right. So this is 2023. We're at 2023, and we're recording this in March. In April. We're in April of 2023. So as we were recording this, the market is in the middle of a downturn. In fact, I was just looking at the numbers in my state of New Mexico, or in my market in Albuquerque. The volume of homes being sold right now is down 40% from where the volume of homes that were being sold at this month last year. So there's just a massive drop in volume between last year and this year. That's a big, significant drop. 2008 was a big drop. What did you learn in 2008 that you maybe have applied now to be able to weather this storm maybe even better?
Well, you know what? Our market is down like yours, not quite as significantly. We're down about 25% overall in the Washington, D.C. market. But what that means is there's 75% of the market is still there. Yep. So we just have to forget about what we can't do. And let's look at what we can do. 75% of the homes that were being sold 2 or 3 years ago are still being sold. So let's just pretend it's 2019. And let's build from there. Forget about 2000, 2021, even 2022. Let's pretend it's 2019. Let's market like we're trying to grow off of 2019. And let's try and grow 25% from there. And you know what? That's a doable proposition. That can be done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. There's only certain things you can control. I can't control how many houses are being sold.
Right.
Like I can't control that. I can't control the interest rates. I can't control. There's a lot of things I can't control, and you can't control. So yeah, exactly. Change your mentality, change your mindset, and go. Let's focus on what I can control. Get your mindset right. Yeah. If it requires you to go to 2019, let's go backwards in time. Let's pretend we're there and move forward from that point. That might give you the mindset to be able to move forward. I think that's incredible. Because you're right. You can get stuck in the doom and the gloom, and you can get stuck in all the naysayers. And if you get stuck there, guess kind of where you set your mind is where you're going to end up going anyway.
Right. It's a positive mindset. And you know what? You can grow your business. How many phone calls do you have to make? How many office visits do you have to do? How many presentations need to be done? Those are things you can control. And if you do those lead measures, then the rest will take care of itself. You can't control the market. The market is going to do what the market's going to do, but you can grow your piece of the pie.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been growing my market share through the middle of this downturn. And all I did was applied everything that you and several other coaches in IAB even said. And they actually referred back to the 2008. It was you, I think Rob Lemoyne talked about this. A few other people talked about, hey, in the middle of this, you might need to cut some of your budget. Don't cut your marketing. Don't cut your growth. In fact, find ways to ramp up your growth activities. And so I did that. I actually ramped up my growth activities. And March, this month that just ended, was actually my second biggest month in the history of my company in the middle of a downturn. So the market, as all volume-wise, is a huge drop in New Mexico. But we just did 25% of the market of the inspections in my market. So we've actually grown our business from, in the teens for market share up into the mid 20s in market share in the middle of a downturn. And all I did was just apply everything that you and others inside of IAB said. I am not that smart. I'm just like, what do I do? Okay, I'll do it. And I'm not trying to reinvent anything. I just look at people who have gone before me and done this. And so,
you kind of hit on that. The whole key to the coaching program, ours and others, is theft.
Absolutely.
We're not inventing new concepts. We're taking existing concepts and we tell people, look, don't look at what we're doing if you're a single man inspector and try and do what we're doing. Look at the guy 2 steps ahead of you and do what he's doing.
Yep.
And then do it better than he's doing. And then look at, when you achieve that, look at the guy 2 steps ahead of that and do what he's doing. And the next thing you know, you will have climbed the staircase and you will be the top dog.
Yeah, it does. It is. That's so true. And we just celebrated 4 years in business last week. And
wow,
congratulations.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's been an incredible growth journey for us. But yeah, so I just think you're right. Like, double down on growth activities, find out what you can control. I cannot control the market. I can't control interest. I can control how many offices I visit. I can control how many phone calls I make. I can control how many people I'm taking out to lunch, or how many people I'm trying to connect with for different things. You know, like I can figure out all those activities to try to be able to I can control that. And that can actually have an input in the business. You said lead and lag, right? There's like lead and lag. I always called it fruit and root because it rhymes.
Oh.
And so, yeah, it's like we're so focused on the fruit of our tree, but if we put the effort into the root of our tree, we'll get the fruit. And so don't be concerned with what the apples are doing. Start working on your fertilizer, start working on watering and fertilizing and tending to the soil. When you tend to the soil and the roots, you get the fruit. And so all of our lead measures, like I can't control the wind. I can't control the rain. I can't control the storms that are blowing around and messing me up, but I can control what I'm feeding my tree. And so keep feeding the tree and you'll get the fruit eventually.
And some of that's kind of scary stuff though. Like, I know we're saying like, hey, just get out there and do this. But I can remember back in 2008, I have a master's in math. And I was a stay-at-home mom, so I had been a teacher at one point in time. And now I was helping run a home inspection company, all things that I had no training for. And now Rob tells me, okay, you've done great with answering the phones, but we need to get out there and market. You need to go to real estate offices and meet people and try to get presentations. And I was so intimidated by that.
Yeah. What do you say?
What am I supposed to do? Like, I couldn't even fathom in my mind what that looked like. But, luckily we had joined this coaching organization and we met, we knew people. And so I actually flew out to a company in California. They were a giant company at the time. And I followed their marketing guy for like 3 days. And after that, I was like, that's all I have to do? Like, I can do that. I just needed to see it. I needed somebody to like hold my hand for a minute and give me an example. And, that was another great thing that we got out of that coaching was that, there were just people to follow and model yourself after. And so then I could come back and I had that level of comfort to just go out there and do what he was telling me to do, And so I'll be forever grateful just to have people to follow and model after.
Yeah. Well, speaking of coaching, IEB is obviously the sponsor of this podcast, and you guys are integral members. In fact, I believe you're even part owners of IEB. You were here in the very beginning.
Yeah.
What did it look like to start IEB, and what's the impact has it had in your life, and what impact have you seen in the lives of others through IEB?
So we couldn't be happier to be a part of IEB because it has just been amazing to watch so many people transform their business. And for Rob and I at this point in our company, like we get so much satisfaction and fulfillment out of just helping other people succeed, that it's actually more rewarding than seeing our company succeed is to see other people, say like, I got to take my family on a vacation for the first time in 10 years, or things like that. Like to us,
I would rather see a company that we coach become $1 million company than have my own company make another $1 million, because I know how impactful that is for people. If I grow my company another $1 million, it helps me, it helps a couple other people. But if I help another company grow $1 million, turn into $1 million company, that's probably going to affect them, their family, their employees, their friends, their entire life. And so we can help literally thousands of people by helping just a couple of hundred companies.
Yeah, I'm incredibly grateful for IEB. So thank you for taking the time to invest in it and get it started. I know there's a handful of people that are part owners of it. There were 3 in the beginning. I hit my my first $1 million year was my full second year in business.
That's incredible.
That's
You don't know how rare that is.
Well, I don't, but because I'm surrounded by so many giants inside of IEB, I am not a smart guy. I am just a run the play guy. Like I basically just ran the play. I just looked what everybody else was doing, like you're saying. I totally just stole everything and listened to all the coaching that was given inside of IEB. And all I did was just execute. And just, that's what has to happen. It's like, oh, this is what we got to do. I'll go do it, and it was just like, well, I don't know. And I am not smart enough to reinvent it. Like sometimes I think the trap is to get really smart on yourself. You think, well, I'm going to tweak this here and tweak this there. And it's like, man, you might be able to do that. But if you're a small company trying to be a big company and the big company is telling you how you do it, I'm just run the play. I mean, that was just simple for me. So thank you for everything you guys have poured into IEB. I mean, I'm a product of that, of IEB pouring into me and me just executing on the play and running it. And
we absolutely love it when people execute the plan. The problem that we often run into is people learn, and they never feel like they've learned enough to execute, so they don't start. And really, all you have to do is start doing it. This stuff works. You learn it and then you start doing it. And so many people learn it, but never actually start.
Yeah. Information versus application all day long. People get, information is not the problem in our society. It's not. Like we have the internet. We all have a device in our hands that we can look up anything in the world you want to. And it's not about the information. It's about going and doing it. In fact, it's not even about motivation either, because I can get on Instagram and I can scroll through all the motivational reels out there. I can get super fired up scrolling through my social media, like, I'm going to go conquer the world. But then the real difference is, are you just going to do it or not? Yeah. And that's where people lack. I give away information all day, every day, and I just know that people aren't going to do it. And so you go look at these guys that are giving away all the content for free on social media. If you follow these like business guru guys, they give out everything for free on social media, and they just know, man, nobody's actually going to do it.
It's very true.
They don't. The difference is application.
And I think that being part of IEB has helped in that sometimes it can get lonely, like, being a business owner and you get worn out, you get beat up a little bit, you get worn out, and we get together and we have these meetings, and I feel like we start to feed off each other's energy and we start passing around ideas again, and it starts to get us excited and recharged. And you're like, okay, I'm ready to go do this for another few months. And you go and you work and you're building. And then sometimes you start to get worn out and beat up. And it's just when you feel like, I'm all alone again, we'd have another meeting and it recharges me. And so that was really important to us in the beginning. Because when you're growing in the beginning, it's a lot of work. And so it was really great to have other people in that journey with you.
I found the accountability helpful as well.
Right.
Because then it's like, okay, well, I'm struggling with this, or this is where I'm at, and this is where I'm bumping my head against. And somebody gives me information and, well, hey, have you thought about this or that on a Zoom meeting or whatever? And, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I like that. Oh, I could work it this way. We kind of brainstorm for 5 minutes on something, and then we move on. Well, again, a few weeks later, we run into each other in a different Zoom meeting or maybe in person at an event. And then they're like, how's that thing going? And if my answer is, I've made zero progress, right? It's like, man, that just sucks.
Yeah.
But if it's like, well, actually I made a little bit of progress here and here. It's just that little bit. Like they're not being rude about the accountability.
No,
they're genuinely caring and they're genuinely saying, how's that going? And you were trying to ramp up your interactions with realtor offices and more teaching experiences or more CE credits you're teaching or whatever. How's that going? Did you get that done? And it's like, they're not asking out of hostility. They're just genuinely curious and cheering for you. And then they're like, man, I haven't done anything yet. Well, what's stopping you? What do you need help with? Let's brainstorm some more. And then next time you see them and they go, how's that going again? And if your answer is still zero, golly, you feel kind of like an idiot because you're like, well, I know exactly what I need to do. And it's only me that's stopping it from happening. Yeah. And so I love the accountability inside of the group.
And if you throw a little competition on top of that and you're kind of at the same level as a friend of yours that's in the business, maybe in another part of the country, and they're going, no, I've pulled ahead, I'm way up here. You're going to go, wait a minute, I could do that. And you're going to,
I'm better than that guy.
If you're a little competitive, you're going to do it just to keep up with your buddy.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it is kind of a fun challenge, and it almost becomes a game for me, at least. I kind of gamify my life normally. I have to trick myself into doing work. So I gamify it like that too, where it's like, well, I'm competing against that person. And so, whether they know it or not, I'm the same way at the gym, just for the record. If you're running on a treadmill next to me, like, you don't know this, but I am going to beat you. Like, that's how it's going to be. And I'm kind of looking over how fast are they going. I'm like clicking the speed button up, and I'm going to run faster and further than they are. And they don't know that, but I'm doing that. But I do the same thing within business too. It's like I look over my shoulder to the left and the right and see where everybody else is at, and I'm like, all right, I found someone that's a similar size to me. I'm going to try to catch up to them, or or maybe I'm going to beat them, and I don't know. I make a game personally that helps motivate me. I think you got to find what motivates you.
He's the same way. Me. I don't have a competitive bone in my body.
I compete about everything.
Everything.
If you're sitting across the table from me at lunch, I'm going to eat more cheeseburgers than you.
If you're at the stoplight, I'm going to beat you off the line.
Yes. Rob,
like they blinked. This was a race. I won.
I do yoga, and Rob's always, I'll come home and he says, "Did you win?" And I'm like, "Rob, it's about honoring your body. I'm not in competition with anyone in the room."
I do yoga with her. I'll go someplace once or twice a year, and I'll announce in the yoga class, "I definitely won today." And they're like, "There's no winning and losing in yoga." I go, "That's because no one claimed it." I'm the winner.
That's because you've never won.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's so funny. Yeah, I make it a competition. Make it a competition. Do something. What is it that fires you up about it?
For sure.
And yeah, absolutely. There's a point now. So how do you do it now? So you guys are probably the biggest one in your market. Would you say the biggest inspection company in your market?
Yeah.
So where do you find the competition now? Or how do you find motivation now when you get to that size?
Well, it becomes more of a challenge for sure, but there's probably 3 or 4 other companies around the country that are bigger than ours. So we can look at them and go, got to keep up with the Joneses.
And
there you go.
We have so many team members now. And so a lot of times we're doing things for our team members. Like, that's the challenge now, is to improve their lives and to see them succeed.
Yeah. Day to day in our own business, we don't have that much to do. Michelle's doing more than she wants right now. But
I have lots to do.
That's funny. My wife was in the business with me for a short time, and we worked her out of a job real quick and got her off doing her own thing. But being working together with a spouse has its set of challenges. And for us, we made better husband and wife than we did coworkers. And we're actually really good coworkers, but it just kind of took the romance out of the relationship. And so it made it hard to be both husband, wife, and like every date night turned into a staff meeting. And so we eventually
I have to. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll say something at 11 p.m. and Michelle will just give me the hand in my face going, "Not now.
Not in the bed.
Tomorrow.
I'll be back in the office tomorrow morning at 8:30. Like, I'm not discussing this with you.
But
here.
you know what? What I found is, working with your wife, you have to divide up the duties. So like in our company, everything that was a services call or an operations call, it was my call. Actually, that's not even true. If it was a services call, it was my call. If it was an operations call, we kind of mutually weighed in on it. And if it was a growth call, it was Michelle's call. Now, I would still be able to weigh in on growth activities and give my opinion, but the final say was Michelle's, because that was her area of expertise. And likewise with services. If it was a services call, I would want her to give me her input, but the final call was always my call because it was my department. And if you run it like that, you can work together very nicely. If it's one party rules in all things, then there's going to probably be a certain amount of resentment at some point.
Yeah, I imagine. Wow. So how do you guys keep the romance alive in the relationship? We
like to work naked. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. Yeah, that would be awkward.
That would be horrible.
Yeah, we do.
How do the other people in the office handle that?
That's a bad one. We do make sure we have date night once a week, and we try not to talk about business. Business always gets put in there, but we do try to not talk about business as much as possible.
Yeah, and we try to go places. Sometimes we'll tag an extra day on to an event that we're traveling to. I know we were in Las Vegas recently for something, and we stayed an extra day and went to a couple of shows and went hiking in the mountains one time. That's the way we do it. We know we have things that are going to come up. We try to tack on an extra day or go somewhere on occasion, but it's difficult. Work is all encompassing if you let it.
Yeah, it really can be. So that's interesting how you guys have found that balance. I'm always curious to ask that whenever I see couples working together.
Yeah. We all, if it's been a rough day, we'll try to like have a drink and say, like, hey, I'm not that lady that pissed you off at the office earlier. Like, I'm your wife right
funny.
now,
You have like different times. You have to say, am I talking to my coworker or am I talking to my husband?
Yeah.
That's an interesting. Yeah, you got to find those boundaries and how do you categorize it enough to, because without the boundaries, I would just think everything runs all over everything.
For sure.
So,
and it
that's a tricky balance.
Doubly complicated because almost all of our kids work in our business.
At one point, we had 13 family members working in our company.
Ooh, wow.
So
that is very complicated.
Yeah, to not make every event that we have be a pro tech event, Yeah,
Michelle actually had to fire her sister.
That's unfortunate. Yeah. I have not hired any family members on purpose because I don't want to have to fire them.
Yeah.
And
that's really
awkward.
Good because nobody's going to care about your business like your family. So we're happy that we have our family and we get to spend a lot more time with them. But
if I had it to do over again,
this is
I would insist that my family members go work for somebody else for at least a year.
This is our young children.
Because what we found is there's a certain entitlement and you have a tendency to let your kids slide on stuff that you would never let somebody else slide on. And if they had to go work for somebody else for at least a year, let them get yelled at by somebody else, get fired by somebody else, get handed the worst job in the business by somebody else. And they learn a little bit more about their work ethic. And not that our kids aren't great at that, but I think I've talked to many people that have family members working for them, and we've all kind of agreed that, wow, it would have been better if they worked for somebody else first.
It gives a nice perspective.
And it lets somebody else be the bad guy rather than the parents,
Yeah.
Because that was a hard thing to work through. Like we had figured out how to work together as a couple, but then you have to figure out how you work together with your kids. And it would have been easier if they learned those hard lessons from somebody else rather than us.
Well, especially if they're younger, if they might even still be living in your home.
Yeah.
So were they living in your home while they were working for you? Yeah. It's funny. I worked for my dad for a short time, and I remember having to talk to him and be like we had to put those boundaries. Like, am I talking to my dad or my boss right now? And I'd be like, hey, Dad, I need to talk to my dad, not my boss right now. And he'd be like, yeah, what's going on, son? And I would tell him, I said, well, I'm having a hard time at work. My boss has been kind of a jerk lately. And he's asking me to do this, and this, and I'm having a hard time with it. How do you think I should approach it? And I would just talk to him like my dad, as if he wasn't my boss. And then later he's like, well, maybe if you talk to your boss about it like this or this, he might have an understanding. He's like, well, that's a great idea. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow in the office. And so then I'll go into the office and be like, hey boss, let's chat about some stuff. And so it was a little bit awkward, but we found a balance by being able to do that.
Sure.
That's kind of cool.
So, I talked to my dad about my boss. My boss has been a jerk lately, and then when I talked to my boss, I'd be like, my dad was telling me that maybe there's a different perspective here. And it was created this kind of fun, like it made it funny. But cause we would kind of laugh about it as we're going through it. But it created that role play enough that we were able to do it. So I imagine if you could create boundaries in role playing, then
it allowed you to have a difficult conversation that otherwise would have been very hard to have without somebody getting upset or their feelings hurt.
This made me think of a story that I want to share because I know that there's probably people on here that are thinking of bringing their kids into the business or they're thinking of hiring their first inspector. But I can remember at one point in time when we were trying to grow. And Rob said to one of our sons at the time, like, hey, I want you to, when you graduate from high school, I want you to come work with me. And he was like, I would never be a home inspector in a million years. Like, you work too hard. And that was kind of an eye-opening to Rob, because that was when, we didn't have a great report format. In his reporting, he would come home and work hours writing reports. And to us,
like all one-man shows, you're doing everything. And yeah, you get to keep a lot of money, all the money, but here's the deal. You're probably working 12-hour days.
Or longer.
And you know what?
6 and 7 days a week.
You can't hire somebody else to work a 12-hour day. They're just not going to do it. So when we realized we were going to grow, one of the main things that we focused on was, how can we make being a home inspector for us the most awesome job ever? And so we had to change our report form so we could do it on site to a large extent. Maybe have 10 minutes worth of work when you go home.
Yeah.
We made it so they didn't have to do anything.
They didn't have to answer the phones.
Wouldn't have to answer the phones. They wouldn't have to pick up their own radon tests. They wouldn't have to, we would handle all the licensing requirements.
Handle the complaints.
We would handle all the complaints. We would field all the phone calls that we could. Sometimes it's a technical call and you can't, but if we could handle it, we did. So we took as much off of their plate as we could. And now I believe working as an inspector for us, it's an 8-hour-a-day job. And it's a very appealing job at this point.
And then our son did come to work for us because he saw like, hey, this is better now. Like I'll do that.
Once it wasn't 12-hour days, he's like, yeah, I could do a piece of that.
It's funny how you're willing to put the effort in to build a system that was better for others, but you didn't do it and it was just you.
Right.
Right. Well, we're all willing to put in however much time it takes, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
But we have to have a realization. And by the way, I didn't come to this realization immediately. I came to the realization after training a guy for 6 months, another guy for a year, another guy for 2 years, and they would leave because it was 10, 11, 12-hour days, and that sucked.
Yeah. And nobody wants to work 12 hours a day,
right?
5 days a week.
For sure.
Possibly weekends, answering phone calls and dealing with the paperwork and nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, as a business owner, we put ourselves through torture sometimes, but unnecessarily. But now once you have a balance and your team's running great, I mean, it sounds like you guys have a good balance. I mean, I know right now, Michelle, you've stepped in during a transition time, training up some new people. So you're putting in some extra time, but hopefully that pays off and it's able to get back to balance again.
For sure.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here on the show today. This was a really fun one. I really enjoyed this conversation. And if people want to get a hold of you and if they have more questions or want to chat with you about something, what's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
I would say either email or text.
Okay.
So my email is Michelle, Michelle at Protec, and that's PROTEC-inspections.com. And Matt, I know you can put that in the show notes. And Rob's is the same. His is just Rob at protec-inspections.com.
Okay.
And you can always check us out on Facebook.
Yep.
Okay. Facebook. And then if you said people can text you, what's the best number to text you?
They should always text me because technology and texting hasn't quite caught up to Mr. Hopkin.
I answer the text if I know the people.
or sometimes he'll say like 2 days later, like, did you text me? And I'm like, I wanted a response then, Rob. That's what texting is.
Yes.
So my cell is 240-997-2631.
Okay. That sounds fantastic. Thank you guys so much for being on the show. This was such a great episode, tons of insight. And hopefully this is something that people can apply into their business now. And
you know what? If somebody's interested in joining IEB, they really should attend an event, attend a RGT, attend something, talk to people that are in it. It's a fantastic organization. And if you really want to grow your business, why wait and try and learn by trial and error? Learn from somebody else's mistakes. It'll speed your timeline tenfold.
For sure.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, until next time, we'll see you later.
Thanks,
Take
Matt.
care. Thanks,
Take
Matt.
care.
You've been listening to Empire State of Mind for the home inspection industry and beyond. Our passion is to elevate the home inspection industry with mindset, strategy, and tools. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. For more, follow on Instagram at IEB Coaching. And don't forget to hit the website at www.iebcoaching.com. Learn about IEB at no cost and have all your questions answered on our open call once a month on the third week of the month. We hope to see you there, and we'll see you next time on the Empire State of Mind.